She defended a kid from a bully and lost everything in one day: her job, her reputation, her future. Then 30 bikers surrounded her on a dark street, shouting her name. What she didn't know, the boy she saved was their family. And they don't forget those who protect their own. The coffee pot was empty again. Maria Gonzalez stared at the glass carafe, her reflection warped and tired in its curved surface. 36 hours. That's how long she'd been awake, bouncing between the morning shift at Route 17 diner and the overnight stock job at Savimart. Her feet screamed inside her worn sneakers, and somewhere behind her left eye, a migraine was building like a storm. Table 7 needs a refill, barked Tom, the day manager, without looking up from his phone. Maria wanted to tell him that Table 7 could wait 30 seconds while she brewed fresh coffee. She wanted to tell him a lot of things. Instead, she grabbed the pot and headed toward the industrial coffee maker in the back, her body moving on autopilot. This was her last shift. Tomorrow, she'd finally be down to one job instead of 2. The thought should have brought relief, but all she felt was a hollow exhaustion that lived in her bones. "Excuse me. Excuse me." The voice cut through the diner's lunch rush chatter like a knife. Maria turned to see the man at table 12, expensive suit, Rolex catching the fluorescent lights, the kind of customer who treated servers like furniture. And he had his hand wrapped around Evan's skinny wrist. Evan was 16, all elbows and acne, working his first job to help his aunt pay rent. Right now, his face was pale, eyes wide with fear as the man yanked him closer. "You spilled water on my briefcase, you little idiot." The man's face was red, spittle flying. "Do you know how much this costs? More than your worthless mother makes in a year." The diner went quiet. Phones came out. Maria felt her exhaustion evaporate, replaced by something hot and sharp. "Sir, I'm sure it was an accident," Evan's voice cracked. "Accident? You're just another careless punk who doesn't understand consequences." The man squeezed harder, and Evan winced. "I should have your manager fire you right now. Better yet, I'll make sure you never work anywhere in this town." Maria's body moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the diner in 4 strides, grabbed the man's wrist with both hands, and twisted hard, a move her ex-husband had tried on her once, before she learned to fight back. The man yelped and released Evan, stumbling backward into his chair. "Don't you ever touch him again," Maria said, her voice low and steady despite her shaking hands. "He's a kid." It was water. "Get over yourself." The man's shock transformed into rage. He straightened his suit jacket, his face now purple. "You just assaulted me. I'm calling the police. I'm calling my lawyer. Do you have any idea who I am?" "I know exactly what you are," Maria shot back. "You're a bully who thinks money gives you the right to hurt people. I have witnesses." He gestured wildly at the other customers, most of whom were still filming. "You all saw her attack me. Unprovoked. She was protecting me," Evan said quietly, rubbing his wrist. "You grabbed me first." "Shut up," the man snarled. That's when Tom appeared, his face already arranged in its customer service smile. The smile that meant someone was about to get thrown under the bus. "Mr. Castellano, I am so deeply sorry about this incident." "Mr. Castellano." Maria's stomach dropped. Vincent Castellano owned half the commercial real estate in town, including the strip mall where Savimart was located. She'd seen his photo in the local paper, always at some charity gala, always with that same predatory smile. "This woman attacked me," Castellano said, straightening his tie. "I want her fired immediately, or I'll make sure the health inspector finds every violation in this establishment." Tom didn't even look at Maria. "Of course, sir. Absolutely. Maria, my office. Now." "Tom," he grabbed Evan. "Office. Now." The walk to the manager's cramped office felt like a death march. Maria could feel every eye in the diner following her. Behind her, she heard Evan's small voice, "It wasn't her fault." Tom shut the door and held out his hand. "Apron. Name tag. You're done. You're seriously going to fire me over this?" "Tom, that man assaulted a minor. He's a customer. A very important customer. And you physically attacked him." Tom's voice was flat, rehearsed. "The choice is simple, you, or this diner. Give me the apron." Maria's hands shook as she untied the strings. 3 years she'd worked here. 3 years of smile and nod, of swallowing insults, of pretending the tips were enough to make up for the degradation. "What about my last paycheck?" Tom pulled an envelope from his desk drawer. "Already cut. Now please leave before I call the police." The envelope felt impossibly light in her hands. She walked out through the kitchen, avoiding the dining room, avoiding the phones, avoiding the end of everything. The back parking lot was empty except for her 15-year-old Honda and a dumpster that smelled like old grease. Maria leaned against her car and finally let herself look at the check. $342. She had rent due in 5 days. Leo needed new shoes, his were held together with duct tape. The electric bill was already overdue. And she'd just lost both her jobs in one afternoon. The laugh that escaped her throat sounded broken. She pressed her forehead against the cold metal of her car and tried to remember how to breathe. Inside the diner, through the kitchen window, she could see Evan watching her. His face was streaked with tears. He mouthed 2 words, "I'm sorry." Maria shook her head and tried to smile. "Not your fault," she mouthed back. But it was someone's fault. It was always someone's fault. The world just kept taking and taking until there was nothing left but empty coffee pots and $300 paychecks and the sound of her own heartbeat saying, "What now? What now? What now?" She got in her car and started the engine. She had no idea that in exactly 4 hours, 30 motorcycles would surround her on a dark street, and everything she thought she knew about safety, family, and survival would change forever. The rain started before Maria even made it out of the parking lot. Of course it did. Because why would the universe give her a single break today? She sat in her idling Honda, watching the drop streak down her windshield, blurring the neon, Route 17 diner, sign into abstract smears of red and blue. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Probably the electric company with another past-due reminder. She ignored it. Through the rain-smeared window, she could see movement inside the diner. Tom was gesturing animatedly to someone, probably Castellano, probably apologizing profusely, probably offering free meals for life. Her phone buzzed again. Then again. Maria finally pulled it out. Not the electric company. Worse. "Diane, Savamart manager need to talk. Come see me before your shift tonight." Maria's chest tightened. Diane never texted. Whatever this was, it wasn't good. She was about to pull out of the parking lot when the diner's back door burst open. Evan ran out, his white busboy shirt already soaked through, looking frantically around until he spotted her car. Maria rolled down her window. "Evan, get back inside before you catch pneumonia." "I told them," he said, rain dripping from his hair into his eyes. "I told everyone you were protecting me. I showed Tom the red marks on my wrist. I told him Mr. Castellano grabbed me first." "I know, sweetie. It's okay." "It's not okay." Evan's voice cracked. "This is my fault. You lost your job because of me." "No," Maria's voice was firm. "I lost my job because Tom is a coward and Castellano is a bully. That's not on you. Do you hear me?" Evan wiped his face, rain or tears, impossible to tell. "My aunt says people like us don't win. People like Castellano always win." Maria wanted to argue, to tell him that wasn't true, that good people who did the right thing were rewarded. But she'd been waitressing long enough to know better. Maybe, she said quietly. But that doesn't mean we stop doing what's right. I'm going to tell the police what really happened. I'll be a witness. Evan, Maria reached through the window and squeezed his shoulder. Right now, I need you to go back inside, finish your shift, and keep this job. Your aunt needs that rent money. Promise me. He nodded miserably, then pulled something from his pocket, a crumpled $20 bill. It's my tips from lunch. Please take it. Absolutely not. Please, his eyes were desperate. I can't fix this, but I can. I can do this. Please. Maria's throat burned. She took the 20 with shaking hands. Thank you. Now get inside before Tom fires you too. She watched him run back through the rain, his thin frame disappearing through the kitchen door. Then she sat there, staring at the damp bill in her palm, and felt something crack inside her chest. $20. A 16-year-old kid's tip money. This was what her life had become. Her phone buzzed again. Diane, Maria, I'm serious. We need to talk ASAP. The Savamart was 15 minutes away. Maria put the car in gear and drove through streets she knew by heart, the rundown strip mall, the payday loan place with its flickering sign, the elementary school where Leo spent his afternoons in the free aftercare program because Maria couldn't afford a real babysitter. The Savamart parking lot was mostly empty at 3 p.m. Maria walked through the automatic doors, her wet shoes squeaking on the linoleum, and headed straight to Diane's office in the back. Diane didn't look up from her computer. Close the door. Maria's stomach dropped further. What's going on? Vincent Castellano called my district manager an hour ago. Diane finally met her eyes. He owns this building. Did you know that? No. I mean, I just found out who he was today. He told them you physically attacked him at the diner. Said you were violent, unstable, a danger to customers. Diane sighed. He wants you terminated immediately, or he'll triple our rent when the lease is up next month. The floor seemed to tilt. Diane, that's not what happened. He grabbed a kid, I stopped him. I believe you. Diane held up a hand. For what it's worth, I completely believe you. But my hands are tied. Corporate already made the decision. I'm supposed to collect your vest and store keys. Maria couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. 2 jobs. She'd lost 2 jobs in 3 hours. There's more. Diane's voice softened. Castellano is apparently filing an assault complaint with the police. And he's called around to other businesses in town. Maria, he's blacklisting you. I'm so sorry. The keys slipped from Maria's numb fingers and clattered on the desk. I have a son, she whispered. I have rent due. I have. I know. Diane stood up and came around the desk. I wrote you a reference letter anyway. And here, she pressed an envelope into Maria's hands. It's your last paycheck plus 2 weeks severance. I'm listing it as a layoff, not a termination. It's the best I can do. Maria walked out of Savamart in a daze. The rain had stopped, but everything felt underwater anyway. Her phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number. You made a big mistake today. People like you need to learn their place. Maria stared at the message until the screen blurred. Then she drove home to figure out how to tell her 8-year-old son that their world had just collapsed. Maria didn't go home. She couldn't face Leo yet. Couldn't walk into their tiny apartment and pretend everything was fine while his bright eyes asked her about her day. Couldn't lie to him again about why she looked like she'd been crying. Instead, she parked at the elementary school and waited. The aftercare program ended at 6. She had 2 hours to figure out how to explain that mommy had lost both jobs in one day and they might not have a home next month. The threatening text message glowed on her phone screen. She'd read it 20 times, each time feeling smaller. You made a big mistake today. People like you need to learn their place. People like you. As if defending a kid made her somehow less than human. As if standing up to a bully meant she deserved to lose everything. Maria deleted the message and stepped out of her car. She needed to walk, to move, to do anything but sit still with her thoughts. The streets were nearly empty in this part of town, industrial buildings, a closed mechanic shop, the old railroad tracks that hadn't seen a train in years. The sun was setting early, the way it did in late autumn, painting everything in shades of amber and shadow. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. She almost didn't look. Then she did. A photo. Her photo. The moment in the diner when she'd grabbed Castellano's wrist, her face twisted in anger. The caption read, "Violent waitress attacks local businessman, full story at 10. Someone had sold the video to the news. Maria's legs went weak. She leaned against a brick wall, trying to breathe, trying to think. This was it. This was how Castellano would destroy her completely. Not just her reputation in this town, but everywhere. Her face on the evening news, labeled as violent, dangerous, unstable. No one would hire her. Ever. The sound started as a distant rumble, like thunder rolling in from the horizon. Maria looked up, confused. The sky was clear now, stars just beginning to appear. The rumble grew louder. Deeper. The ground beneath her feet began to vibrate. Then she saw them. Motorcycles. Dozens of them, roaring down the empty street in a tight formation, their headlights cutting through the dusk like knives. The sound was deafening, primal, shaking the air itself. Maria pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. She'd heard about biker gangs that operated outside town, drug runners, criminals, the kind of people you crossed the street to avoid. The motorcycles surrounded her. Not passing by. Surrounding. Blocking both ends of the street, their engines idling in a thunderous chorus. There had to be 30 of them, maybe more. Riders in leather vests, bandanas, heavy boots. Several had full-face helmets that made them look inhuman. Maria's hand shook as she reached for her phone. 911, she needed to call 911. Maria. Her finger froze over the screen. Maria Gonzalez. The riders were shouting her name. How did they know her name? A figure pushed through to the front of the pack, pulling off his helmet. Evan. Maria's brain couldn't process it. Evan the busboy, standing beside a massive motorcycle, waving at her frantically. Maria, it's okay. It's okay. His voice barely carried over the engine noise. Come with us. Come with us, other voices echoed. Maria, come with us. This had to be a nightmare. A stress-induced hallucination. 16-year-old Evan didn't ride with biker gangs. This wasn't real. Evan, what? Her voice came out as a whisper. She tried again, louder. What is happening? A massive man dismounted from the lead motorcycle. He had to be 6'4", built like a bear, with a thick gray beard and arms covered in tattoos. His leather vest had patches Maria couldn't read in the dim light, but the word "President" was clear across the back. He walked toward her slowly, hands visible and open. Ms. Gonzalez, his voice was surprisingly gentle. My name is Ray. I'm Evan's uncle. We need to talk, but not here. It's not safe. Not safe? You surrounded me with 30 bikers. 32, a woman's voice called from the pack, almost amused. We saw the video, Ray continued. What you did for my nephew. What that bastard Castellano is doing to you now, he gestured to her phone. I'm guessing you just saw the news alert. Maria's mouth went dry. How do you know about? Because we've been watching Castellano for months. He's been threatening people, destroying lives, and hiding behind his money and connections. Ray's jaw tightened. But he made a mistake today. He went after someone who protected our family. I don't understand. Anyone who protects our family is our family. Ray extended his hand. And family looks out for family. Now, you can stand here and wait for Castellano's next move, maybe another threatening text, maybe something worse, or you can come with us somewhere safe where we can actually talk. Maria looked at Evan. The kid was nodding encouragingly, his earlier tears replaced by something that looked almost like pride. Your son, Ray said quietly. Leo, right? He gets out of aftercare at 6. We can have someone pick him up safely, bring him to you. Or you can get him yourself and meet us after. Your choice. But Maria, you need to understand something. Castellano isn't done with you. Not by a long shot. The motorcycles rumbled, waiting. Maria thought about the threatening text. The news story. The blacklist. The $342 in her purse. Where? She asked. Ray smiled. Follow us. Maria followed the convoy in her Honda, feeling like she'd driven into an alternate universe. The motorcycles moved in perfect formation, two flanking her car on each side like an honor guard. Ray led from the front, his bike's taillight a red beacon through the darkening streets. They headed away from town, toward the industrial district where the old warehouses squatted like sleeping giants. Maria's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was insane. She was following a biker gang to a secondary location. This was literally everything they told women never to do. But Evan was with them. Sweet, clumsy Evan who cried when he accidentally broke dishes. And Ray had known Leo's name. They pulled into a gravel lot in front of a massive warehouse, its metal walls tagged with faded graffiti. The building looked abandoned, windows dark, loading dock closed, chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. Maria's hand moved to her door lock. Ray dismounted and walked to her window. I know how this looks. But trust me for 5 more minutes. Please. Against every instinct, Maria got out of her car. The bikers had already killed their engines, the sudden silence almost shocking. In the quiet, Maria could hear music playing from inside the warehouse, something upbeat, maybe Spanish guitar, and voices. Children's voices. This way, Ray led her to a side door hidden behind a dumpster. Inside was impossible. The warehouse was lit with strings of warm lights, the kind you'd see at a backyard party. The concrete floor was painted with colorful murals, dragons, flowers, cartoon characters. To the left, rows of shelves were stacked with canned goods, boxes of pasta, bags of rice. A food bank. To the right, a workshop area with tools, sewing machines, and half-repaired bicycles. Further back, Maria could see kids at tables doing homework while 2 women supervised, helping with math problems. This wasn't a criminal hideout. This was a community center. Welcome to Guardian Riders headquarters, Ray said, watching her face. Not what you expected? I know. Maria turned in a slow circle. What is this place? Started it 8 years ago, a woman said, approaching with 2 steaming mugs. She had silver hair in a long braid and kind eyes. I'm Ruth, Ray's wife. Coffee? You look like you need it. Maria accepted the mug automatically. The coffee was actually good. Guardian Riders, Ray explained, we're not your typical MC. Most of us are veterans, social workers, teachers, tradespeople. We started this after, he paused, something painful crossing his face. After I lost custody of my daughter. System failed her. Failed me. Figured if it was failing us, it was failing others too. Evan appeared at Ray's elbow. Uncle Ray basically saved my life. My mom, his sister, she died 2 years ago. OD. I was gonna end up in foster care, but Ray fought for me. Won custody. The kid's being modest, Ruth said. He's pulling straight A's now, planning to apply to college next year. Maria's head was spinning. But the motorcycles, the leather, You surrounded me on the street. Dramatic entrance. I'll admit, Ray had the grace to look sheepish. But you need to understand, Castellano has cops on his payroll, judges in his pocket. We needed to get to you first, bring you somewhere he can't touch. Somewhere his surveillance cameras can't see. Surveillance cameras? Ray pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen. Security footage appeared, the Savamart parking lot. Maria, walking to her car earlier, talking on her phone. The timestamp was from less than 2 hours ago. Castellano has access to security feeds all over town through his real estate holdings. He's been tracking you. Ray swiped to another image. This is from the traffic camera on Oak and Main. That's your car, 20 minutes ago. Ice flooded Maria's veins. He's been following me. Welcome to how Vincent Castellano operates. He doesn't just destroy people's livelihoods, he destroys their sense of safety. Makes them feel hunted. Ray's jaw clenched. We've been documenting his pattern for 8 months. You're the 7th person this year he's targeted like this. 7th? Ruth nodded. There was a teacher who reported his son for plagiarism. A mechanic who wouldn't falsify an inspection. A nurse who filed a complaint about his mother's care at the nursing home. All of them lost their jobs within days. All of them got threatening messages. 2 left town entirely. Maria sank into a nearby folding chair. Why? Why does he do this? Because he can, Ray said simply. Because he's gotten away with it for years. Because people like us, he gestured around the warehouse, we're supposed to know our place. The words echoed the text message. Maria's hands trembled around the coffee mug. But here's what Castellano doesn't know, Ray continued, and now there was steel in his voice. That diner had a backdoor security camera that he doesn't control. And we have a friend who worked there. Past tense as of this afternoon. They quit and took the security footage with them. He tapped his tablet again. The screen showed grainy footage of the diner from a high angle. Maria watched as Castellano grabbed Evan's wrist, twisting it viciously. Watched herself intervene. Watched the moment frame by frame. This, Ray said, shows exactly what happened. You didn't assault anyone. You stopped an assault. But the news. The news is running the story Castellano paid them to run. But the truth? Ray smiled, and it wasn't gentle anymore. It was predatory. The truth is on our side. Now we just need to figure out how to use it. Mom. Leo's voice cut through Maria's exhausted thoughts as he burst through the warehouse door, his backpack bouncing against his small frame. His eyes went wide, taking in the motorcycles parked outside, the bikers lounging around the space, the sheer impossibility of where his mother had ended up. Are those real motorcycles? He breathed. Ruth, who had picked him up from aftercare, laughed. Very real. Want to sit on one? Can I? Mom, can I? Please. Maria wanted to say no. Wanted to grab her son and run back to their apartment and pretend this entire day had never happened. But their apartment wasn't safe anymore, was it? Not with Castellano tracking her movements, not with his threats hanging over them. Just sitting, she said weakly. No touching anything. Leo hooped and ran outside with Ruth, leaving Maria alone with Ray. He doesn't know yet, Maria said. About the jobs. About any of this. Kids are tougher than we think, Ray said. But you need rest before you have that conversation. When's the last time you slept? Maria tried to remember. The hours blurred together. Yesterday morning. Maybe. We have dorm rooms upstairs. Nothing fancy, but they're clean and safe. Used to be office space when this was a functioning warehouse. We converted them for situations like this, people who need a place to breathe while they figure things out. I can't just stay here. You can, and you will. At least for tonight, Ray's tone left no room for argument. Tomorrow we start fighting back. Tonight, you rest. The dorm room was small but surprisingly comfortable. Twin beds with clean sheets, a worn but cozy armchair, a small bathroom with a shower. Someone had placed fresh towels and a basket with basic toiletries on the dresser. Through the window, Maria could see Leo sitting on Ray's motorcycle, making engine noises while several bikers looked on with amusement. One of them, a massive man with a beard down to his chest, was showing Leo how the clutch worked. "That's Tiny," said a voice behind her. A young woman with bright purple hair and multiple piercings leaned in the doorway. "He's actually a kindergarten teacher. Also makes the best chocolate chip cookies you've ever tasted." Maria must have looked skeptical. "I know, right? I'm Jasmine. I run the after-school program downstairs. Your kid's got good energy. He'll fit right in tomorrow if you decide to keep him here during the day." "I can't afford. It's free." "That's kind of the whole point," Jasmine smiled. "Look, I know this is all overwhelming. Yesterday you were working double shifts, today you're in a biker warehouse. But Maria, you're safe here. That's not something you've been able to say in a while, is it?" The words hit harder than they should have. Safe. When was the last time Maria had actually felt safe? "We have about 30 kids who come through here every week," Jasmine continued. "Most of them have parents who work weird hours, or multiple jobs, or are just trying to survive. We do homework help, hot meals, art projects. Tomorrow's Friday, so we're doing pizza and movie night. Leo's welcome to join." Through the window, Leo's laughter rang out as Tiny pretended to rev the motorcycle, making exaggerated vroom vroom sounds. Maria's eyes burned with sudden tears. "Hey, it's okay," Jasmine stepped into the room. "You held it together all day. You're allowed to fall apart now." "I don't fall apart," Maria whispered. "I can't afford to fall apart." "That's exactly why you need to," Jasmine squeezed her shoulder. "Ruth's bringing up dinner in 20 minutes. Try to eat something." "And Maria? Your son thinks you're a superhero." The way Evan told the story, standing up to that rich jerk, protecting him like that, Leo's been telling everyone his mom is the bravest person in the world. After Jasmine left, Maria sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself cry. Not the pretty kind of crying from movies, but the ugly, gasping kind that came from somewhere deep and broken. She cried for the jobs she'd lost, for the fear that lived in her chest like a stone, for every time she'd swallowed her pride and smiled at customers who treated her like dirt. She cried because for the first time in years, someone had called her brave instead of desperate. Leo came bounding in 10 minutes later, his face flushed with excitement. "Mom! Mom, Tiny says I can help in the workshop tomorrow. They're fixing bikes for kids whose families can't afford new ones, and he says I could help paint them. Can I? Please?" Maria wiped her face quickly. "We'll see, baby. Come here." Leo climbed onto the bed beside her, and she wrapped her arms around him, breathing in the little boy's smell of his hair, grass and sweat and that cheap shampoo they bought at the dollar store. "Mom, are you okay?" His voice went quiet, worried. "Yeah, baby. I am now. Those bikers seem really nice. Tiny let me sit on his motorcycle. And Ruth gave me cookies. And there's this lady named Jasmine who says tomorrow they're watching The Lion King and having pizza. Can we stay for that? Maria looked out the window at the warehouse lot, at the bikers who had somehow become her unlikely protectors, at this impossible sanctuary in the middle of her collapsing world. Yeah, she said softly. We can stay. That night, for the first time in 36 hours, Maria slept. And for the first time in years, she didn't dream about drowning. She dreamed about motorcycles and roaring engines and the feeling of not being alone. Maria woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Leo's laughter echoing up from downstairs. For one blessed moment, she forgot where she was. Forgot yesterday. Then reality crashed back, the diner, Castellano, the jobs, all of it. Her phone showed 7:43 a.m. 17 missed calls. 12 text messages. Her stomach dropped as she scrolled through them. The first few were from her landlord. Then her cousin Angela. Then numbers she didn't recognize. The texts were worse. Angela, Maria, what the hell? You're on the news. Landlord, Martin, need to discuss your lease. Call me ASAP. Unknown, you're famous now. Everyone knows what you did. Unknown, violent psycho. You should be in jail. Unknown, how does it feel to be unemployed and unemployable? Maria's hands shook as she opened her news app. The headline made her vision blur. Local waitress fired after violent outburst, assault charges pending. The article was worse than she'd imagined. It painted her as unhinged, dangerous, a single mother with a history of instability, who had viciously attacked a respected businessman without provocation. They'd interviewed the diner owner, Tom, who called her increasingly erratic in recent weeks. They'd somehow found her ex-husband Derek's DUI arrest from 5 years ago and implied their troubled relationship had left her emotionally unstable. There was no mention of Evan. No mention of Castellano grabbing a child. Just her face, frozen in that moment of anger, looking exactly like the monster they wanted her to be. Morning, Ray stood in the doorway with 2 coffee mugs. Saw the article. Figured you might need this. Maria took the coffee with numb fingers. It's over. He's buried me. Not yet, he hasn't. Ray sat in the armchair. We expected this. It's his pattern, control the narrative first, make the victim look crazy, then hit them with legal action while they're already drowning. Legal action? Ray's expression darkened. Got a call from a friend at the courthouse an hour ago. Castellano filed formal assault charges yesterday evening. There's also a civil suit for damages, emotional distress, damage to his reputation, medical costs for injuries sustained. He wasn't injured. I barely touched him. Doesn't matter. He's got a doctor's report claiming whiplash and severe anxiety. He's suing you for $200,000. The room tilted. Maria set down the coffee before she dropped it. I don't have $200,000. I don't have $2,000. I don't have, her voice cracked. He knows that. He's doing this to destroy me completely. Yes, Ray said bluntly. That's exactly what he's doing. But here's what he doesn't know, we've already contacted a lawyer. Pro bono. She specializes in cases like this, and she's very good. I can't afford. Pro bono means free, Maria. She works with us on Guardian Writers cases. Her name is Patricia Chen, and she's been waiting for a chance to take down Castellano for years. You just gave her the ammunition she needs. A knock interrupted them. Ruth poked her head in. Ray, we've got a problem. You need to see this. Downstairs, the warehouse was buzzing with activity. Several bikers were gathered around a laptop, their expressions grim. Jasmine was keeping Leo occupied in the far corner with a coloring book, but even from across the room, Maria could feel the tension. What happened? Ray asked. Tiny, the massive kindergarten teacher, turned the laptop screen toward them. Castellano's lawyer filed a motion this morning. Emergency custody hearing. Maria's blood went cold. Custody? Custody of what? Of Leo. Ruth's voice was gentle but firm. They're arguing that you're unstable, dangerous, and currently homeless, living with a motorcycle club. They've petitioned for emergency removal of your son pending a full custody evaluation. They can't. Maria couldn't breathe. They can't just take my son. Derek gave up his rights years ago. He left us. He hasn't paid child support in 3 years. He can't just. It's not Derek filing. Ray pulled up another document on the screen. It's Castellano. He's claiming to be a concerned citizen with evidence that you're an unfit parent. The word swam before Maria's eyes. Unfit parent. The worst words in the world, the nightmare that kept her up at night when Leo had a fever and she couldn't afford the doctor, when she worked double shifts and left him with neighbors, when she fed him generic cereal for dinner because that's all they had. The hearing is Monday morning, Tiny said quietly. That's 3 days. 3 days to prove I'm not a monster. Maria's laugh sounded broken even to her own ears. How do I prove that when everyone's already decided I am? By fighting back, said a new voice. A woman in a sharp gray suit walked through the warehouse door, her heels clicking on the concrete. She was petite, maybe 50, with perfectly styled black hair and the kind of presence that made everyone stand straighter. Patricia Chen, she said, extending her hand to Maria. Your attorney. And before you spiral further, yes, this is bad. Yes, Castellano is playing dirty. But he just made his first real mistake. What mistake? Maria whispered. Patricia smiled, and it was sharp as a knife. He went after your child. That changes everything. Judges don't like powerful men who weaponize the family court system. And I'm going to make absolutely sure this judge knows that's exactly what's happening here. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Now, let's talk about how we're going to destroy Vincent Castellano's credibility piece by piece. Saturday morning dawned cold and clear. Maria had barely slept again, her mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. Leo being taken away. A courtroom. Foster care. Despite Patricia Chen's confidence, despite the security footage Ray had shown her, the fear was a living thing in her chest. Mom, wake up. Tiny says today's the big ride. Leo bounced on her bed, already dressed in jeans and the Guardian Riders t-shirt someone had given him yesterday. It was 3 sizes too big, hanging off his small frame like a dress, but he wore it with absolute pride. Big ride? Maria's brain was foggy. The charity thing. They're delivering food to families, and Ruth says I can come, and there's gonna be like 100 motorcycles. Can I go? Please, please, please. Ruth appeared in the doorway with coffee. It's our monthly food delivery run. We partner with the county food bank, bring supplies to rural families who can't get to town easily. Usually about 40 riders participate. Thought it might be good for you to see what we actually do. I don't know if I should. Patricia said you need community support for Monday's hearing, Ruth interrupted gently. Witnesses who can testify to your character. These families we help, they remember kindness. They remember faces. And Maria, they need to see you as more than the picture Castellano painted on the news. 2 hours later, Maria found herself sitting behind Ray on his motorcycle, her arms wrapped around his waist, Leo safely positioned in front of him in a custom child seat, wearing a helmet decorated with cartoon sharks. You good back there? Ray called over his shoulder. Maria wanted to say no. Wanted to admit that she'd never been on a motorcycle before, that the power thrumming beneath her terrified her, that she felt exposed and vulnerable and completely out of control. I'm good, she lied. The convoy rolled out at 10 a.m. sharp. 43 motorcycles, their engines creating a symphony of thunder that shook the morning air. They moved through town in formation, and Maria watched as people on the sidewalk stopped and stared. Some looked afraid. Others pulled out phones to film. But some, especially in the poorer neighborhoods, some people waved. Smiled. Gave thumbs up. Leo shrieked with joy every time Ray accelerated, his little hands gripping the handlebars, his laughter swallowed by the wind. And somewhere between the warehouse and the highway, something shifted in Maria's chest. The fear didn't disappear, but it transformed into something else. Something that felt almost like power. They rode for 40 minutes into rural country, winding roads, farmland, trailer parks tucked between stretches of pine forest. The first stop was a double-wide with a sagging porch and a yard full of broken toys. A woman came out, wiping her hands on her jeans. She had to be Maria's age but looked 10 years older, worn down by life's sharp edges. 3 kids peered out from behind her legs. Guardian riders, the woman called, her face breaking into a genuine smile. You're early this month. Got more families to hit today, Sarah, Ray said, dismounting and helping Leo down. Brought extra supplies. How are you holding up? Jerry's back is still out. Workers' comp denied his claim again, Sarah's smile faltered. But we're managing. We always manage. The bikers unloaded boxes from the trailers hitched to several motorcycles, canned goods, pasta, rice, fresh vegetables, diapers, even some toys. Sarah's kids crept forward, eyes wide at the motorcycles, at the leather-clad riders who were placing groceries on her porch with surprising gentleness. This is Maria, Ruth said, guiding her forward. She's new to our crew. Maria, this is Sarah. She's been a friend of ours for 2 years now. You're the waitress, Sarah said suddenly. From the news. The one who stood up to that Castellano guy. Maria's stomach clenched. Yes. Good, Sarah's voice was fierce. About time someone did. That man tried to evict my sister from her apartment last year because she complained about black mold. Ruined her credit, made sure she couldn't rent anywhere decent in the county. She had to move 3 hours away to find work. Castellano owns half the rental properties around here, another biker, a woman named Roxanne, added. He's a slumlord who hides behind expensive suits and charity galas. They visited 6 more families that morning. Each time, the story was similar. Single mothers. Elderly couples on fixed incomes. Veterans waiting on disability benefits. Families one medical emergency away from homelessness. And at every stop, someone recognized Maria. And at every stop, they thanked her. You did what we all wish we could do, said an old man at the 4th house, his handshake firm despite his trembling hands. People like us, we don't get to fight back without losing everything. But you did it anyway. At the 7th house, a teenage girl took Maria's hand. My mom says you're brave. She says we need more people like you. By the time they stopped for lunch at a roadside diner, ironically, Maria's understanding of the world had shifted. These weren't customers looking at her with pity or disdain. These were allies. Warriors in their own right, just trying to survive a system designed to grind them down. Leo sat between Tiny and another biker named Marcus, eating French fries and talking non-stop about motorcycles. His face glowed with happiness Maria hadn't seen in months. You okay? Ray asked, sliding into the booth beside her. Maria watched her son laugh at something Tiny said. Watched the way these rough-looking bikers treated him like he mattered, like he was precious. Yeah, she said, and meant it. I think I finally am. Sunday afternoon, Maria's phone rang with a number she'd blocked 2 years ago. She knew she shouldn't answer. Nothing good ever came from that number. But something compelled her, maybe the same instinct that made you look at a car crash, maybe the need to know exactly what fresh hell was coming. Hello? Maria, Derek's voice was smooth, practiced. The voice he used when he wanted something. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. You gave up that right when you walked out. I'm talking about our son. About Leo's safety. Maria's hand tightened on the phone. Through the warehouse window, she could see Leo playing basketball with Jasmine and 2 other kids, his laughter carrying across the lot. Leo is perfectly safe. Really? Because from what I'm seeing on the news, you assaulted someone, lost your job, and now you're living with some biker gang. Derek's voice sharpened. That's not a safe environment for a child, Maria. You don't get to lecture me about. I'm outside. Buzz me in. Maria's blood went cold. You're where? Outside the warehouse. We need to talk face to face. Unless you want me to call the police and report that you're keeping my son in an unsafe location. Ray looked up from his laptop as Maria stormed past. What's wrong? Derek's here. My ex-husband. Ray's expression darkened. The one who abandoned you? The one who hasn't seen Leo in 3 years? The one who's apparently very concerned about safety? All of a sudden, Maria's voice dripped with sarcasm. Derek stood in the parking lot beside a BMW that was definitely new. He'd put on weight, his hairline had receded, and he wore the kind of business casual outfit that screamed middle management. The boy she'd fallen for at 19 was gone, replaced by this stranger who'd cared more about his freedom than his family. Maria. You look, he paused. Tired. What do you want, Derek? I want to help, he smiled, and it made her skin crawl. I know we had our differences, but Leo is still my son. And I've been thinking, maybe it's time I stepped up. Took on some real responsibility. You're 3 years too late for that revelation. I'm serious. I've got a good job now, a stable income. Nice apartment in the city. Leo could have his own room, good schools, actual opportunities. Derek glanced at the warehouse. Not this. Ray and several other bikers had materialized behind Maria, forming a wall of leather and muscle. Derek's eyes widened slightly, but he held his ground. You think you can just show up and play dad? Maria's voice shook with rage. You missed birthdays. You missed Christmases. You missed the time he broke his arm, the time he had pneumonia, every single parent-teacher conference. You missed his life. I know, and I regret that. But Maria, be realistic. You're unemployed, homeless, facing assault charges. I'm offering our son stability. Stability? You couldn't even manage child support payments. That was then. I'm different now. And if you really love Leo, you'll do what's best for him. Derek pulled a folded document from his jacket. I already filed for emergency custody. The hearing is tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Family Court, Judge Morrison presiding. The world stopped. You what? I'm sorry, Maria. But you forced my hand. I can't let my son live like this. Derek's voice took on a self-righteous tone that made her want to scream. I've got a lawyer. I've got character witnesses. I've got evidence of your current situation. The judge will see I'm the stable option here. You haven't been a father for 3 years. And whose fault is that? Derek's mask slipped, showing the anger underneath. You made it impossible. You and your pride, always refusing help, always pushing me away. I pushed you away? Maria's voice rose to a shout. You left. You said being a father was suffocating you. You said you needed to find yourself. Don't you dare rewrite history. Leo's voice cut through the argument. Dad? Maria's heart shattered. Leo stood in the warehouse doorway, his face pale, confused. He'd grown so much since Derek left, lost his baby teeth, shot up 3 inches, learned to read chapter books. And Derek had missed all of it. "Hey, buddy," Derek's voice softened, became almost genuine. "Wow, look at you. You're so big." Leo looked at Maria, then back at Derek. "Why are you here?" "I came to see you. I missed you." Derek took a step forward. "And I was thinking, maybe you'd like to come stay with me for a while? I've got a place with a pool, and there's an arcade nearby." "Leo, go back inside," Maria said quietly. "But Mom." "Now." Leo fled, and Maria saw tears on his face. Another thing Derek had broken. Derek handed her the custody papers. "See you in court tomorrow, Maria. And for what it's worth, I really do think this is better for him. You're not equipped to give him the life he deserves." He walked back to his BMW, and Maria stood frozen, the papers heavy in her hands. Behind her, Ray spoke quietly. "Patricia needs to know about this. Now." Maria looked down at the legal documents, at Derek's signature, at the court date that was less than 24 hours away. "He's working with Castellano," she whispered. "He has to be. Derek wouldn't do this on his own. He's too lazy." Ray's jaw clenched. "Then we prove it. And we make them both pay." Maria found Leo in the upstairs dorm room, curled on the bed with his face buried in a pillow. "Baby, I'm sorry you had to see that. Is Dad taking me away?" His voice was muffled, small. Maria sat beside him, her hand on his back. "No. Nobody's taking you anywhere." "But he said." "I don't care what he said." Maria's voice was fiercer than she intended. "You're my son. You're staying with me. Always." Leo rolled over, his eyes red. "Do you promise?" Maria wanted to promise. Wanted to swear on everything she held sacred that she'd never let Derek take him. But the custody papers in her pocket felt like lead weights. "I promise I'll fight for you with everything I have," she said instead. Honest, if not reassuring. Leo nodded and curled into her side. They sat like that for a long time, Maria stroking his hair, both of them trying not to think about tomorrow. Downstairs, voices rose in argument. Maria left Leo with a tablet and headphones, some cartoon he liked, and descended to find the warehouse in chaos. Bikers clustered in groups, talking urgently. Patricia Chen had arrived with her briefcase, looking grim. And Ray stood in the center of it all, his face dark with anger. "Completely blindsided us," Patricia was saying. "Derek's lawyer is Richard Solis. He's one of Castellano's personal attorneys. There's no way this is coincidence. So it's a coordinated attack," Tiny said. "Take away her job, her reputation, and her kid all at once." "Exactly," Patricia turned as Maria approached. "I've been on the phone with the courthouse. Judge Morrison is. Let's say he's known for being sympathetic to fathers' rights cases. Especially fathers with money and good lawyers." "I don't have money," Maria said numbly. "I don't even have a job." "Which is exactly what they're counting on," Patricia's voice softened. "But we have the security footage. We have character witnesses. And we have proof that Castellano is orchestrating this." "What proof?" Maria asked. Patricia hesitated. "We're working on that part." The room fell silent. Maria felt something crack inside her chest. "You don't have proof. You're guessing. We have patterns, connections. You have nothing." Maria's voice rose. "And tomorrow I have to walk into a courtroom and convince a judge that I'm fit to raise my own son while everyone in this town thinks I'm a violent lunatic who lives with criminals." "We're not criminals," Ray said quietly. "I know that." Maria whirled on him. "But they don't. The judge won't see community organizers and kindergarten teachers. He'll see leather vests and motorcycles and decide that Derek's sterile BMW and pool are better for Leo. Maria. This was a mistake, she was shaking now. Coming here, trusting you, thinking a biker gang could actually help me. We're trying to help you. Ray's voice finally rose to match hers. We brought you somewhere safe. We gave you a lawyer. We showed you that you're not alone in this fight. And what has it gotten me? My son asking if his deadbeat father is taking him away. A custody hearing I'm going to lose because I can't prove anything. Maria's breath came in gasps. Maybe Derek's right. Maybe I'm not equipped for this. Maybe Leo would be better. Don't finish that sentence. Ray's voice was steel. Don't you dare. Why not? It's what everyone's thinking. It's not what I'm thinking. Ray slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. You want to know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking about my daughter. The warehouse went silent. Ray's eyes were bright with something that looked like pain. Her name was Lily. She was 7 when my ex-wife decided I was unfit. Said I was dangerous. Said the motorcycle club was a bad influence. Said Lily needed stability, not a father who rode with thugs. Maria's anger faltered. Judge believed her, Ray continued, his voice rough. Gave her full custody. Restricted my visitation to supervised only, 1 weekend a month. My ex moved 3 states away. Made it impossible for me to see Lily regularly. You know what happened? No one spoke. Lily's stepdad was abusive. Not physically, but emotionally. Destroyed that kid's self-esteem, isolated her from friends, controlled every aspect of her life. By the time she was 13, she ran away. Called me crying from a bus station in Ohio. Begged me to come get her. Ruth moved to Ray's side, her hand on his shoulder. I fought for 2 years to get her back, Ray said. Spent every penny I had on lawyers. Finally won when she turned 15 and the judge let her testify. She's 19 now, in college, doing okay. But I lost 8 years with my daughter because a judge decided that money and appearances matter more than love. He looked directly at Maria. So no, I don't have perfect proof that Castellano and Derek are working together. Not yet. But I know how these people operate. I know how the system fails people like us. And I know that giving up, letting them win without a fight, that's the only guaranteed way to lose everything. Maria's legs felt weak. She sank into a chair. I'm scared. Good. That means you're paying attention, Ray's voice gentled. But scared doesn't mean helpless. We have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to build your case. So we can either sit here arguing, or we can get to work. Your choice. Maria looked around the warehouse, at Patricia organizing documents, at Tiny and Roxanne already on phones calling character witnesses, at Ruth making coffee for the long night ahead. At this impossible family she'd stumbled into 3 days ago. What do you need me to do? She asked. Ray smiled. Tell us everything about Derek. Every weakness, every lie, every skeleton in his closet. We're going to war, Maria. Time to load our weapons. They worked through the night. Patricia sat at the main table with Maria, extracting every detail about Derek's past. The DUI he'd gotten while Leo was still in diapers. The credit cards he'd maxed out in Maria's name before disappearing. The job he'd been fired from for falsifying expense reports. He's not stable, Maria said, hands wrapped around her 4th cup of coffee. He's just good at looking stable. That's what we need to prove. Patricia made notes on her legal pad. What about his current employer? Some tech startup downtown. He posts about it constantly on social media. Maria pulled up Derek's Facebook on her phone. Look at this. He checked in at a bar at midnight last Tuesday. And here, Friday night, some club in the city. This was last month. Patricia leaned forward. His custody petition claims he maintains a quiet, stable home environment suitable for a child, but his social media shows late-night partying multiple times a week. He's 34 going on 21, Maria said bitterly. Having Leo cramped his style. That's why he left. Across the warehouse, Tiny was on his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard with surprising speed for such massive hands. Got something, he called out. Derek's BMW? Leased, not owned. And he's 2 months behind on payments. Also behind on rent at his nice apartment. There's an eviction notice filed against him from 3 weeks ago. Ray looked up from his own phone. So the stability he's promising is a lie. More than that, Tiny continued, scrolling. His employer? That tech startup laid off 40% of its workforce last month. Derek's LinkedIn was updated 2 weeks ago. He's marked as open to opportunities. The man's unemployed. But his lawyer is expensive, Patricia mused. Richard Solis charges $500 an hour minimum. How is an unemployed man with an eviction notice affording him? The question hung in the air. Castellano, Maria whispered. He's paying Derek's legal fees. We need proof, Patricia said. Bank records, communication, something concrete. Ruth appeared from the back office, carrying a folder. Remember that woman from the county clerk's office? The one whose daughter we helped last year? She owes us a favor. She laid out papers on the table. Court documents, filing receipts, all from Derek's custody petition. Filed Thursday afternoon, Ruth said. Less than 24 hours after Maria was fired. The lawyer's retainer was paid in full, cashier's check, that same day. Patricia's eyes gleamed. Cashier's checks are anonymous, but they have to originate from an account. If we can trace. Already on it, said Jasmine, walking over with her own laptop. I used to work in banking before I started the after-school program. Cashier's checks have serial numbers. And I have a friend who might be able to help us identify the source bank. That's legally gray area, Patricia warned. So is weaponizing family court to intimidate a witness, Ray shot back. At 3 a.m., Jasmine's friend came through. The cashier's check had been purchased at First National Bank, from an account belonging to VJC Holdings, one of Castellano's shell companies. Got him, Patricia breathed. This proves coordination between Castellano and Derek. But Tiny was frowning at his screen. There's more. I've been digging into Castellano's business dealings. He's got a pattern. In the last 3 years, he's filed 19 lawsuits against former employees, tenants, or people who crossed him. Guess how many he won? All of them? Maria asked. None. 0. He settles every single one right before trial, usually for nuisance amounts. Tiny looked up. He's not trying to win. He's trying to destroy people financially and emotionally through the legal process itself. Death by 1,000 cuts, Ruth said quietly. Bleed them dry until they give up. The security footage, Maria said suddenly. From the diner. We need to give it to the press. If people see what actually happened. Already done, Ray said. Sent it to 3 local news stations and 2 online outlets at midnight. They'll run it on the morning news cycle, right before your hearing. Maria stared at him. You already, when did you? While you were spiraling upstairs, Ray's expression was gentle. We told you, Maria. We're fighting back. All of us. At 6 a.m., Patricia's phone rang. She listened for a moment, her face unreadable, then hung up. That was my contact at the courthouse. Judge Morrison just recused himself from the case. The room went silent. Why? Maria asked. Anonymous tip that he plays golf with Castellano every Sunday. The case has been reassigned to Judge Elena Vasquez. Patricia smiled slowly. She's known for not tolerating manipulation of her courtroom. And she despises wealthy men who abuse the legal system. Anonymous tip, Ray repeated, looking innocent. Wonder who sent that. At 7 a.m., the morning news aired the security footage. Maria watched on someone's phone as the anchor's tone shifted from sensational to sympathetic. New evidence suggests the viral confrontation may have been an act of protection rather than aggression. At 8 a.m., Maria put on the one professional outfit she owned, a navy dress Ruth had pressed for her, and stood in front of the bathroom mirror. She looked tired. Scared. But not defeated. Behind her reflection, she could see the warehouse, bikers in their colors, Patricia organizing files, Leo eating breakfast with Tiny, this impossible family that had formed around her in 4 days. You ready? Ray asked from the doorway. Maria turned to face him. Let's end this. 15 motorcycles escorted Maria's Honda to the courthouse, their engines roaring like war drums. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters. Maria froze in her car, watching the cameras, the microphones, the crowd. This was exactly what Castellano wanted, her humiliation broadcast for everyone to see. Then Ray tapped on her window. You're not walking in there alone. The bikers formed 2 lines from the parking lot to the courthouse entrance, creating a corridor. Patricia took Maria's arm on one side, Ruth on the other. Leo walked between Ray and Tiny, wearing his too big Guardian Rider's shirt with pride. The reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Maria, do you regret your actions at the diner? Are you really living with a biker gang? Do you think you'll lose custody? Maria kept her eyes forward, but Patricia stopped halfway up the steps and turned to face the cameras. My client acted to protect a minor from physical assault, Patricia said clearly. Security footage proves this beyond any doubt. We're confident Judge Vasquez will see through this coordinated attempt to weaponize family court for revenge. Who's coordinating it? A reporter called out. All will be revealed in court, Patricia said, and guided Maria through the doors. The courtroom was smaller than Maria expected. Derek sat at the plaintiff's table with Richard Solis, looking nervous in an ill-fitting suit. His eyes widened when he saw the bikers filing into the gallery, a dozen of them, plus Evan, plus several of the families from the charity ride. Judge Vasquez entered, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. This is a custody hearing, not a media circus, she said, surveying the packed room. I've reviewed the emergency petition filed by Mr. Derek Gonzalez. Mr. Solis, make your case. Solis stood, smooth and confident. Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned about his son's welfare. Ms. Gonzalez recently lost her employment due to violent behavior, is currently homeless, and has chosen to reside with members of a motorcycle club. The Guardian Riders, Judge Vasquez interrupted, a registered non-profit organization with 501(c)(3) status. I have their paperwork right here. Continue. Solis faltered slightly. Regardless of their legal status, Your Honor, it's an inappropriate environment for a child. Mr. Gonzalez can provide stability, a home, steady income, proper schooling. Your Honor, if I may, Patricia rose. Mr. Solis's claims about his client's stability are demonstrably false. We have documentation showing Mr. Derek Gonzalez is currently unemployed, facing eviction, and has multiple creditors pursuing him for unpaid debts. She slid papers across to the judge. Derek's face went pale. Furthermore, Patricia continued, Mr. Gonzalez has had no contact with his son for 3 years. He hasn't paid child support, hasn't attended school events, hasn't even sent birthday cards. This sudden interest in custody coincides suspiciously with Ms. Gonzalez's legal troubles. Mr. Solis? Judge Vasquez looked up from the documents. My client has been prevented from seeing his son. I have phone records, Patricia interrupted. 0 calls from Mr. Gonzalez to Ms. Gonzalez in 3 years. 0 texts. 0 emails. 0 attempts at contact of any kind. Solis was sweating now. Your Honor, the core issue is Ms. Gonzalez's violent behavior. Which was self-defense. Patricia pulled up the security footage on a tablet and handed it to the judge. This is from the Route 17 diner, showing the entire incident. You'll see Vincent Castellano grabbing a 16-year-old employee, twisting his wrist, and threatening him. Ms. Gonzalez intervened to protect the minor. The courtroom was silent except for the audio from the video. Even from where Maria sat, she could hear Castellano's threats, see his aggression. Judge Vasquez watched it twice. Mr. Solis, was your client aware of this footage? We were told Ms. Gonzalez assaulted. Yes or no? No, Your Honor. We were not aware. And who told you Ms. Gonzalez assaulted Mr. Castellano? Solis's jaw tightened. Mr. Castellano himself contacted us about representing Mr. Gonzalez. Contacted you? Meaning Vincent Castellano initiated this custody action and is presumably paying your fees? The courtroom erupted in whispers. Your Honor, Solis tried, that's not relevant to. It's extremely relevant. Judge Vasquez's voice was ice. You're telling me that a wealthy businessman who was caught on video assaulting a minor, who was then prevented from further harm by Ms. Gonzalez, has now weaponized family court to retaliate against her? And you saw nothing wrong with this? Your Honor, I was simply representing my client's interests. Your client, Judge Vasquez cut him off, who hasn't seen his son in 3 years, who is unemployed and facing eviction, who is clearly a proxy for Mr. Castellano's vendetta. Mr. Solis, I hope the retainer was worth your reputation. She turned to Derek. Mr. Gonzalez, stand up. Derek stood on shaking legs. Did Mr. Castellano offer to pay your legal fees if you filed for custody? Derek looked at Solis, who shook his head frantically. But something in Judge Vasquez's stare broke him. Yes, Derek whispered. The courtroom exploded. Judge Vasquez slammed her gavel. This petition is denied, she declared. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the State Bar for investigation of Mr. Solis's conduct, and to the district attorney regarding Mr. Castellano's apparent witness intimidation and abuse of legal process. She looked at Maria. Ms. Gonzalez, custody remains with you. Mr. Derek Gonzalez, you will not contact Ms. Gonzalez or her son except through official channels, and any future custody requests will be viewed with extreme skepticism by this court. Maria couldn't breathe. Couldn't process. Patricia was squeezing her hand, saying something, but all Maria could hear was the word, denied. Leo crashed into her from behind, wrapping his arms around her waist. We won, Mom. We won. The gallery erupted in cheers. The bikers were on their feet, applauding. Even some of the reporters were smiling. Derek slunk out through a side door, Solis hurrying after him. As they left the courthouse, more cameras waited. This time, Maria stopped on her own. I'm a single mother who works hard and loves her son, she said clearly. I protected a child from assault. That's not violence. That's being human. And I'm grateful to everyone who stood by me when a powerful man tried to destroy me for it. The bikers revved their engines behind her, not threatening, but celebratory. And for the first time in a week, Maria smiled. 3 months later, spring had arrived. Maria stood in the renovated community kitchen, watching volunteers prep for the evening meal service. The space gleamed with new equipment, industrial stoves, refrigerators, stainless steel counters, all donated after the story went viral. Turned out people liked supporting single mothers who stood up to bullies. Mom! Mom, come see. Leo burst through the door, his Guardian Rider's jacket, properly sized now, zipped up tight. He'd grown 2 inches in 3 months, his face fuller, healthier. The worry lines that had creased his forehead were gone. What is it, baby. Tiny fixed another bike. It's purple. Can we deliver it to that girl whose birthday is tomorrow? Maria smiled. After the ceremony. I promise. The ceremony. Her stomach fluttered with nerves. Ruth poked her head into the kitchen. 15 minutes. You ready? As I'll ever be. The warehouse had been transformed. Streamers hung from the rafters, chairs arranged in neat rows, a small stage set up at the front. Over 200 people packed the space, bikers, families from the charity rides, volunteers, reporters, even Judge Vasquez, who'd become an unexpected ally. Maria took her place at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. Leo sat in the front row between Ray and Tiny, practically vibrating with excitement. 3 months ago, Maria began, her voice steady, I thought my life was over. I'd lost 2 jobs in one day. A powerful man was trying to destroy me. I was terrified, broke, and convinced I'd lost control of everything. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Then 32 motorcycles surrounded me on a dark street, and a kid I'd tried to protect told me to trust him. And somehow, impossibly, I did. Ray grinned from the front row. The Guardian Riders taught me something crucial, that dignity isn't about money or status or having a perfect life. It's about showing up for each other when the world tries to grind us down. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's about building community in the broken places. Applause rippled through the crowd. So today, I'm honored to announce the official opening of the Guardian Riders Community Support Center. We've expanded our food bank, our after-school program, and we're launching a new initiative, legal advocacy for people who can't afford to fight back against workplace abuse and housing discrimination. Patricia Chen stood and bowed slightly, to more applause. We're also launching a job training program, Maria continued. Because I know what it's like to be labeled unemployable. I know what it's like when one bad day defines your entire future. We're going to change that. She looked directly at Evan, who sat with his aunt, both of them teary-eyed. And we're creating a youth scholarship fund, because the kid who works bussing tables and pulls straight A's deserves a chance at college. Actually, he deserves more than a chance, he deserves a celebration. Evan's scholarship letter had arrived last week, full ride to State University, starting in the fall. None of this would exist without Ray, Ruth, and everyone who believed that protecting one scared waitress was worth the fight. Maria's voice cracked. You gave me more than help. You gave me family. The standing ovation lasted 2 full minutes. After the ceremony, the party began. Someone cranked up music, a mix of country and Spanish guitar. Kids ran between the motorcycles. The smell of grilled food filled the air. Maria found herself cornered by a reporter from the state newspaper. One last question, the reporter said. What happened to Vincent Castellano? Maria's smile turned sharp. You'll have to ask his lawyers. Multiple lawsuits from former victims, a federal investigation into his business practices, and last I heard, he's selling off properties to pay legal fees. Turns out when you spend years abusing people, eventually they all compare notes. The reporter grinned. And the diner owner who fired you? Shut down last month. Labor Department found dozens of violations. Wage theft, unsafe working conditions, harassment. Tom's facing criminal charges. Maria felt no satisfaction in it, just a quiet sense of justice. The building's being converted into a community center. As the reporter left, Derek's lawyer, his former lawyer, Richard Solis approached. He looked diminished, tired. Ms. Gonzalez. I owe you an apology. Maria crossed her arms. Yes, you do. I was disbarred, he said quietly. Lost everything. And I deserved it. I let money blind me to what was right. He swallowed hard. For what it's worth, what you've built here, what you're doing, it matters. I hope someday I can do something that matters too. He walked away before Maria could respond. Ray appeared at her elbow, handing her a soda. You okay? Yeah. Just thinking about second chances. Everyone deserves one, Ray said. Even lawyers who screw up. Speaking of which. He gestured to the parking lot, where Leo was sitting on Ray's motorcycle, wearing a mini helmet and making engine noises. Tiny was showing him how to properly grip the handlebars. He's been asking when he can learn to ride, Ray said. I told him when he's 16. Hope that's okay. Maria watched her son laugh, surrounded by people who'd become his uncles and aunts and guardians in every sense that mattered. It's more than okay. That evening, as the sun set orange and gold over the warehouse, the bikers fired up their engines for the traditional closing ceremony. 32 motorcycles, their thunder shaking the ground, their lights blazing. Leo stood beside Maria, his hand in hers, his smile brighter than the sunset. Mom, he said, are we going to be okay now? Maria looked around at the community they'd built, the family they'd found, the strength they'd discovered in the most unlikely places. She thought about the scared woman who'd walked out of that diner with $342 and no future. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone who knew that power didn't come from money or status, it came from standing up, speaking out, and refusing to face the fight alone. The motorcycles roared louder, and Leo whooped with joy. Yeah, baby, Maria said, squeezing his hand. We're going to be more than okay. As the engines thundered into the night, Maria realized something profound. She hadn't just received help from the Guardian Riders. She'd found her tribe. Her purpose. Her home. And in the end, that was worth more than any paycheck, any job, any approval from people who'd never understood what it meant to fight for every single day. The motorcycles circled the lot one final time, their headlights creating rivers of gold in the darkness. Maria and Leo stood at the center of it all, no longer alone, no longer afraid. Finally, blessedly, beautifully. Home.